Welcome to the season 1 finale of Random Reactions. Normally I react to just one story or one series of stories, but since this is the season finale, I'm going to be reacting to several stories, and then we'll also finish with a little NFL draft preview of my breakdowns as the first round picks came in. So let's get right to some of these stories because there's a lot to get to. First, the hip-hop world has had a lot of sad news lately with the way too early losses of DMX, Black Rob, and now Shock G. Shock G is, of course, well known by his alter ego Humpty Hump with his signature Groucho glasses. Shock G formed Digital Underground in Oakland and debuted with the album Sex Packets, which included the well-known hit The Humpty Dance. In an article on Revolt.tv, a headline reads, 7 Ways Shock G Impacted Hip-Hop. And the article talks about many things, from Shock G's Oakland roots, how he helped foster other artists of the area, to the Humpty alter ego creation being one of the greatest of all time. He was also dedicated to community and culture. And of course, Shock G introduced Tupac to us all. Hell, I remember being 8 years old and watching the movie Nothing But Trouble with Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Demi Moore, and John Candy. Digital Underground, led by Shock G and featuring Tupac, make a famous cameo in the movie to play same song. And I was introduced to the Underground and Tupac at that young age. I became a fan of Underground instantly and listened to many tracks, loving the jazzy, funky beats. And Tupac is, of course, a legend in his own right. Shock G was a rapper and a producer and one of the all-time greats. He and Digital Underground are definitely influences for me. I just have to say rest in peace and condolences to his friends and family and to all of the recent hip-hop deaths. And as Method Man and Redman said on their 420 verses, go out and buy some of these hip-hop albums. Help support these artists' families. Next, in an MLB.com story titled Negro Leagues Had Their Own Two-Way Stars, is a headline that was interesting and not very surprising. Shohei Ohtani is, of course, one of the new two-way players, and most baseball fans know Babe Ruth, as he was a pitcher and a hitter for part of his career. But now that the Negro Leagues are being accepted into the MLB history books and recognized as a major league, which should have happened a very long time ago, it is time to learn about the players that were some of the best of all time and probably would hold records if they were able to play in the MLB at that time. The article talks about the financial limitations, reducing rosters on teams, making it a necessity to have two-way players. I mean, these were segregated leagues in a terrible era in the United States. But that didn't stop these legends of the diamond from making names for themselves. Ted Radcliffe, or Double Duty, is one of the players the article talks about. He hit a grand slam and was a catcher during a Satchel Paige shutout, and then he pitched a shutout of his own, all in one doubleheader. That's an amazing feat. Now, the article does discuss 3 main players in this article. You got Charles Wilbur Bullet Joe Rogan, you got Martin Dihigo, or El Maestro, and Leon Day. It's a great read and a much needed history lessons for baseball fans. When you go down the list of players, these guys would have been at the top of the record books, like I said before, had they been allowed to play. I do plan on doing a show that highlights some of these great players in the future. Everyone who is a baseball fan should know these names. And it really was a travesty that it took so long for the MLB to not be segregated and for them to recognize these players' accomplishments. Trust me, they are legends. Moving on, an article on foodandwine.com titled Brits Are Drinking More Beer Than Brewers Can Handle Now That Pubs Have Reopened. It talks about how Heineken is limiting the number of kegs of Barra Moretti, which is a highly popular draft lager in England. It's pretty insane to think that the easing of COVID-19 restrictions has led to so much demand for a pint. at a local pub that kegs are actually being limited because a macro brewery, we're talking about a brewery that produces hundreds of thousands of barrels, cannot keep up with demand. But don't fret, UK residents. Support local microbreweries, which might have their own beers, and also learn how to homebrew, where you can make all kinds of delicious beers and not have to worry about these types of shortages. I'm sure many of you do know how to do that. I mean, I'm drinking this delicious Belgian wit that I brewed myself. And next, I'm going to brew a jalapeno raspberry wheat ale. And you can join me for that process as I will feature it in my next show. Back to sports, I read this article on Reuters.com and was very, very surprised. It is titled "Call Your Shot: Bucks to Offer In-Game COVID-19 Vaccines." Essentially, in the May 2nd game against Brooklyn, fans 16 and older attending the game would also be offered vaccine shots before and during the game. I mean, I do think that this is great for the Bucks to participate in this, getting people vaccinated in a deadly pandemic so we can all get back to normal and not have so much death is something everyone should root for. And as a fan, you could get to watch a good Brooklyn versus Milwaukee game and get a vaccine. Definitely better than driving an hour and a half to a small town that resembles the invasion of the body snatchers. But I also have a few worries stemming from the knowledge of fans being indoors during a 2 to 3 hour game and those fans not being fully vaccinated yet. Better to get them vaccinated, of course, but at the same time, why does no one understand that the UK variant is around and that being indoors increases your risk of getting the disease and then spreading it to others? I don't know, but while I say kudos to the Bucks for helping, I also wish the fans already were fully vaccinated before they came to the game. Sports gets even stranger in a story on KSL.com called Pup Moving On Up, Dog Races Past Competition at Recent Logan High Track Meet. Yes, this is Utah. You should watch this video that is attached to the article by MileSplit. It is hilarious. My description won't even come close to watching it. Apparently, Logan High School took a big lead in its 4x200 relay in the meet. Grace Laney was the last leg, and she figured the relay was up by so much. She was kind of cruising to the win. But then she felt and heard footsteps behind her. But those weren't human footsteps. Instead, it was a dog. A dog had broken free from owners and ran on the track, catching up with Laney, crossing the finish line before her, almost tripping her at the end as well. I mean, seriously, someone get that dog a baton and a spot on the Olympic team. You know, stories like this are always funny to see. I see a lot of funny things covering high school sports. But this is something I've actually never seen in person, though I did see geese on a soccer field forcing a pause in the game once. That was definitely interesting to see. Lastly, I get to a NBC.com article titled American Tabletop Awards 2021, the best board game winners. Playing card or board games with friends like Munchkin, Arkham Horror, Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride, etc. is one of the several things I've been missing being stuck at home during this pandemic. I really only get outside for work, picking up groceries, taking a walk, things like that, until I'm fully vaccinated in about a month. Some games that won awards that are mentioned in the article do seem like fun to me. I got to check them out. The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9 is a space exploration game where players work together to complete missions to find an unknown planet. Monstrosity, where a player looks at a picture for 20 seconds and then must describe it to players who then sketch the monster, and the witness chooses the best picture. I know my fiance Alexandria would love this game, being a very good drawer and painter. Dune Imperium is another game that seems interesting. It is a card game based on Frank Herbert's Dune, and with the movie coming out, it can be nice to get lost in the universe by reading the book and playing a card game. You know, but I don't have any of these games. I've been definitely thinking about how fun it will be to play games with friends again. In order to get my board game fix in the past year, I have been finding ways, you know, for me to play by myself, even if it is a co-op or multiplayer game. You know, in order to do that, I sometimes tweak the rules and find new fun ways for me to play the games. And some can even be used as a different way for me and my friends to play when we can all meet up, you know, inside again. and it's definitely a fun thing. But, I'm also watching a lot of sports, especially since sports are back. And I definitely will feature a lot of sports on my new YouTube channel. And one of the things I just recently did is I reacted to the first round NFL draft picks as the picks came in. So right as the pick came, I came up with my take at that point. And those videos are now available on YouTube. But for those that want a little bit of a taste of some of the things I did, I've created a little bit of a preview of some takes on some of the picks. So enjoy. I think in the end, Lawrence should be pretty decent, but they have to build around him. They got to make sure they can protect him. They got to make sure he has weapons. Again, if this guy ends up being the Calvin Ridley prototype, like everybody says he is, we all see how Calvin Ridley does, another Alabama wide receiver. So it could be a huge pick for the Eagles here. So I know my cousin Danny's excited about this one. I personally think you should have took a lineman to protect him. I know there are question marks about Sewell. Can he play left tackle? He's not guaranteed to be good. But in terms of taking a quarterback when you really need a quarterback, this is the guy you want, a guy with potential, a guy who's been in big games, a guy who's shown that he can make plays in clutch situations. I don't care who you are. Even Peyton Manning had a system. Tom Brady had a system. Like, these guys didn't become Hall of Famers. Tom Brady obviously is still playing, but these guys didn't put up the numbers that they did without that system in the beginning. Trevor Lawrence,
he's got some burst. He can track down running backs. He's a very good run stopper. And the Buffalo Bills, which a definite team that came out that, people expected the Bills to be good, but they definitely, I think, exceeded expectations last year and came so close to making a run at the Super Bowl. The Chiefs were just too good with Patrick Mahomes. But I think what they did is the Bills saw what the Buccaneers were able to do against Patrick Mahomes, how they were able to rush him into throws and keep him uncomfortable in the pocket with their just dominant front seven. So what do the Bills do? They try to make their front seven better.
I don't know. I think you got to protect your quarterback, but they get a huge weapon in Chase. And nothing about
Chase.
If
you look at some of his his best plays, a lot of it was second effort. So he's definitely a guy. I don't like this big. And it's not to say anything about Eric Stokes. He's a decent cornerback. He's probably going to be good in a couple of years. But you don't have a couple of years. You want to be winning now. Why would you take a guy that's not going to be a starter right away? It doesn't make any sense.
That's the show. I hope you've been enjoying Random Reactions. And don't worry, I will be bringing this show back for season 2 a little later this year. But I will also be working on several other projects until then. One, the SunDried Tomatoes podcast is now out and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. A video version is also on my SunDried Tomatoes YouTube channel. And of course, that is a monthly podcast. And the first episode that just came out a week ago is with my friend Javi Hurtado as we discuss the European Super League fallout and his love for the Liverpool Football Club. We also talk about the White Sox for my Chicago listeners. Well, Javi has a lot to say about his emotions during the Super League announcement, the protests afterward, and his love for soccer and Liverpool. It is very interesting to hear what he has to say, and I recommend that you listen to what he has to say by checking out my podcast, downloading, and subscribing where you can. Episode 2, which will drop at the end of May, will be about fantasy football and brewing with another special guest, friend, Fantasy Football League member, and the brewmaster at Union Corners Brewery, John Puchalski. So keep your ears open for that one. I will also be working on a few other shows for the YouTube channel, and will be working on some short videos for YouTube and my Instagram account in this time. So stay tuned for a lot of fun shows coming your way. Subscribe to my SunDried Tomatoes YouTube channel and follow my Instagram for more fun, eclectic content. Also check out the SunDried Tomatoes podcast out now on Apple Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and in video form on YouTube.